Welcome back, everybody, to our Opus 13 review. We're talking about the Lightning cards today, and I'm joined, as always, by Travis Pfeifer. How are you doing?
Hello, Alex. Thanks for having me. It's a perfect day here for it. It's very rainy outside, so perfect element to talk about lightning. And yeah, other than that, I've just been kind of hanging around today, which is nice. My life is very nice and static.
Well, you know, it's actually pretty sunny and dry right now in Vancouver. So should we just record this on a different day?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I guess we'll just go back a different time.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. We're going to try to record when the weather is more appropriate, and then we'll get back to you. Okay, we are going to get into it. And Travis, you're going to lead off. You're our lead-off batter today.
Yes, sir. All right. Up first from St. Louis, Missouri. Okay, we have a Red Mage backup standard unit from Final Fantasy Explorers, 3-cost lightning backup. When he enters the field, you turn over one card at a time till you reveal Wind or Earth. This is Lightning's version of Cascade. These are all the same. We know what they do. They're all solid. So the only thing I'll say is it's interesting that the art is the exact same. It's that same town you mentioned. I've noticed it every time since you've mentioned it now. It almost feels like it's like picture day for a school. Like they're like, okay, class, and then we'll line up one by one, and here's the picture spot, and everyone strike their pose.
And they roll in, or they unroll the background. It's like the library.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The exit. The background is like, hey, here's like a storefront in a cool castle. And
yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's move on to the next card, which is the Delusory Warlock, which is another mannequin, but it's a mannequin backup. So the cost to cast him, the cost to cast your Exdeath forward, which is a lightning one, is reduced by 1. And we've already seen this effect once, so you can really work on reducing the cost of your Exdeath. It cannot become 0. So when he enters the field, you can search for a one-job mannequin other than lightning and add it to your hand, which is kind of interesting. It's pushing you into multicolor, which is good because there's mannequins in all sorts of colors. This is a mannequin searcher that will count as a mannequin for all your mannequin stuff. Seems good.
Sounds like a beast. It's job mannequin, so unless you've already drawn it, I feel like you just go pull out the Shantoto mannequin, the Lady of Antiquity. Now you're color fixed for everything you want. Yeah, it just pulls out basically any mannequin. So
the fact that you can really search a backup, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like if this was a card in like Opus 1 or 2, like obviously in Opus 2 would have seen play. I'm saying if there was no mannequins, like people would use this to search backups. Like that's what we used to do with like Alphino and Louis Sois. Yeah. Even if you weren't running anything remotely Scion based. So it looks good.
One of the laws of the FFTCG universe is that backup searching backups are always very strong. So
yes, yeah, exactly right. Okay, cool.
All right. Well, what would these mannequins be without their leader? And here we have Exdeath. Exdeath is a 6-cost, 8,000 power forward. When Exdeath enters the field, you may play one job mannequin of cost 4 or less from your hand onto the field. The job mannequin forwards you control gain 1,000 power, and for each job mannequin you control, Exdeath gains 1,000 power. So this is a reprint of an Opus 2 card. Was he a legend back then? No, he was a hero in Opus 2, and then he's a rare here.
Yeah, this is his promo art.
Yeah, they changed the art too. This is the promo art version of him versus the original art version. So obviously this is really nice and limited because otherwise you'd have all these mannequins and you really wouldn't have a huge payoff for them. So it's nice to put the Exdeath in here. With all these backup mannequins we have now, I mean, this guy has got to be like 12K, probably pretty easy just from all those power-ups. He's going to power all of them up. And then he himself, he's 6 CP, but he's just going to get cheaper and cheaper based on all those ones you have. You might be bringing this guy down for pretty cheap, and he doesn't specify forward. So again, you can put him down, put down a backup. I mean, it was a good card for what it did back then, and it's nice to see it reprinted again just for the sake of limited. That if you're cracking open packs of these, you now have access to this Exdeath instead of having to go find Opus 2 packs for it.
So would you pop him down turn 1 for the full price, but you would play the card we just saw to search into the Shantoto, and then play the Shantoto, and then be Exdeath 2 backups ready to go?
That's a good point. Yeah, you might. I haven't experimented with mannequins yet, so I don't know if that's like the play, but especially if, like, let's say you just you have a bad hand, you have a bad mulligan, but you got Exdeath in hand. Yeah, slam him down there. Now that's a big body for them to deal with, and you're going to go grab those mannequins. And from what I understand, I'd have to ask Alex Hancock this to be sure, but mannequin play back then, a lot of people would just turn 1 Exdeath and then go to town from there.
Well, back in Opus II, that's how we played every deck. We just played all of our cards as quickly as possible. And I remember going down to Seattle, and there was a bunch of Oops All Forwards decks that were just like super aggressive. It was crazy. Nice. Okay. Yeah, so awesome that they reprinted this. I think it's a nice precedent, as long as it's not like, hey, here's a bunch of reprints. So that's
right.
Good.
Exactly.
Yeah. Alrighty, Rue. Okay, we got Odin, 5 CP EX Burst, Summon, Final Fantasy Explorers. I love that they always have this art with the different perspective, and like parts of the card are in focus and not in focus, and that's very cool. The summons could be a little better though. So if you've received 5 points of damage or more, it reduces cost to cast him by 3. So it could be a 2 CP, break a 5, cost 4 or less. It's, which would be really good at 5 damage. The fact that it's an EX burst, like that always is going to mean there's going to be room for like a Lightning Odin deck with EX burst. Like Odin is a more relevant summon name than the other summons that we got with the EX Explorers. So it gets a point there, but it's still like I'm not high on these EX summons, these Explorer summons.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the artwork because, again, as usual, especially compared to those standard units, this just sticks out so much more. I do like him a little better than some of the other EX summons we've got, the Explorer summons, just because he has a very good range, like 5 or less. That covers most of the forwards in the game. Yes, there's a couple that are going to avoid that, but for the most part, that's still good. And some people would still pay 7 CP for that, the Opus I Odin. So overall, I do like him a little better, but outside of an Odin deck, again, I feel like I'm just going to go with one of the other many Odins we have.
Yeah, if you're paying 7 CP for that Opus 1 Odin, then you're doing it wrong, okay? Just EX burst them. It's as simple as flipping it over when you take a point of damage. It's not that hard.
Nothing else to it.
Okay.
All right. Next we have, this might have been the very first card revealed for Opus 13. If it wasn't the first one, it was very early, but this might have been the first one. So this is Kain from Final Fantasy IV. He is, of course, a Job Dragoon. He is a 2 CP, 9,000 power forward. Kain has haste. When Kain enters the field from your hand, place 1 brainwashing counter on Kain. When Kain is put from the field into the break zone, if a brainwashing counter is placed on Kain, play Kain from your break zone onto your opponent's field. So this isn't the first Kain to really delve into that brainwashing, side-switching theme that they just love to put on his card, because get it in the game, Golbez was controlling him and he's turned against you. It's like, yeah, we get it. That being said, this is the one I think I'm the most excited about, because I have kind of an Oops All Dragoons deck, which Shane Duckworth used at the Reunion tournament, and it has the Alice backup and it fetches for Dragoons. Well, normally you would run the 8 CP Kain in there. That would let you like break a backup and lose power. But this one, on such a huge body and haste, that again, he just fits into that Dragoon theme of I just want to slam forwards out and blast him. Now, you obviously have to be a little careful, because if you're putting him from hand and then he dies, your opponent's going to get this big body too. So that is a little worrisome. However, in that deck, there are ways to cheat him in. So, for example, Aranea can bring him back from the break zone if she's on damage 3. He has no brainwashing counter then. So if you can do that, that's going to be crazy strong. Aranea brings Kain in. He can immediately go in, and he's such a big body. Like, I'm really excited for this card. I'm hoping and I'm thinking that the upside of him will outweigh the downside. Hopefully I'm not wrong about that, but I'm very excited to try this guy, and great amount of artwork.
I can't wait to win a game by killing someone's Kain with a brainwashing counter, get him, he has haste, and then swing with their Kain to win the game.
That would feel bad as the opponent.
I think if you just, like you said, if you put this in the right deck where you're planning to use this correctly, then it's all upside. The one thing is like, there's going to be some games where you take the risk and you play it to be able to just get some swings in. Or maybe, you run a counter to it. That you might have to have it stolen. So you run something like, not actually Zalbag, but you run like something that's going to take care of it. There's lots of break a forward of 2 CP or something. That could be fun. But then again, that's probably too much work. Yeah.
I have to mention this because this is the only card so far that I've thought of this for. If you controlled the 5 CP Yuna that lets you, remove cards from the break zone when they would go there from the game, normally you only always did that for your opponent's cards. This is the one card that if she was on your side of the field, you're like, oh, that Kain, he's just getting removed. He's not going to the break zone. So that way you avoid the
with
downside.
other cards. There's been other downside cards before that you've you've played Unit
okay.
4. Yeah.
I guess that's the one I thought of.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a good idea, and I think water lightning dragoons is not out of the question, right? So
yeah,
okay, cool. I guess it's me now.
Yeah.
Next up is Clavat, which is a 4 CP standard unit, FFCC, 7k power. When he enters the field, choose one monster of cost 3 or less. If you paid with wind, you can break it, and if you paid with water, then you can return a forward of cost 3 or less to your opponent's hand. Again, like, fine effects, but a lot of work for a 4 CP 7k when you can just play cards that do these things that are better. So I'm not into it.
And probably one of my least favorite of these type in this opus, just because monsters are just, not really around much unless these new monsters end up making a splash. So that first effect almost might as well not even be there.
Back in like the Dataluma Cactar days, you would just kill for any card at all in any color that could come in and break a Cactar. And this would see so much play because you would just, you would figure out a way to have this be your, I get a body and I'm breaking a Cactar, sweet. Yeah. But now it's just not good enough.
Yes, sir. This card looks awfully familiar. I think I've seen it on this channel before. Well, we have the Mysidia Gaming Opus 13 spoiler, and that is Sakura from Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. She's a 4-cost backup, job Sage, and she's very simple. She says you can only pay with Lightning CP to cast Sakura. When she enters the field, choose one forward of cost 4 or less opponent controls, break it. So kind of a little upgrade over the Seymour from, was he Opus 1 or Opus 2? I know he's one of those early ones. Yeah. I don't remember, but that early Seymour, and he would break a 3 or less. So this one gets to break one higher, with the downside being that it has to be Lightning CP. So it seems like a no-brainer in a mono Lightning deck, especially as cards get cheaper. We're getting stronger 4-cost cards and below now. So she's going to have a lot of valid targets. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, you know what? And I know that there's a legend Sakura that is specifically for mono lightning as well, but I mean, this just seems easier to use anyway. So yeah, great card revealed by a great content creator. What can I say?
Absolutely.
Okay, next up we've got Jake, the Womanizer. So he's a 3 CP forward FFBE job marksman, 7k power, and he has a super weird effect. When he enters the field, choose one active forward, deal it 3k for each type of CP of a different element that you've used to cast Jake. So, I guess you could get up to 9k with this on a 3 CP, which is kind of neat. So if you're really going a multicolor deck or you have color fixing, then that could be quite possible. And that's good. Like, that's good 9k ping. Or if you're just comboing with other things, then I guess, 6k ping. So there's probably more potential for this guy in the right deck, but it doesn't really jump. It seems like a lot of work to get up there. I will mention that FFBE is a category that is just flung across every color. So, if you're making an FFBE deck, you're probably playing this Jake and doing some damage.
Between the nickel, we'll see water, the lid that's going to come up later. There seems to be like a lot of multi-element love for FFBE. Yeah. Very interesting they decided to do that. Other than that, wow, this artwork's kind of nutty. Like, first of all, he looks like he's ready to go to battle. And his face, especially like when I zoom in on the kind of blown up version in the background, it kind of reminds me of like Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series or Nathan Fillion. Like, yeah, he's very rugged and ready to go guy.
Yeah, big time. He's one of my favorite characters in the...
I
honestly love all the FFBE main characters. They're great.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. Next, we have, back to Final Fantasy IV, Zemus. Zemus is a 4-cost backup job Lunarian. When Zemus enters the field, choose one forward in your break zone, add it to your hand. Damage 3. When Zemus enters the field, choose one backup in your break zone, add it to your hand. Card's incredibly solid. To me, the real only question you ever have to ask yourself about this card is if you're playing Lightning, do you play this or do you play the Opus 1 Sage? So the Sage could get back any character. And this one, technically, it is limited to forward. So, like, let's say you drew him on turn 1 and for some reason you didn't have a forward in your hand, you technically wouldn't have a target for his effect. But if you can wait till damage 3 to put him down, you're going to get a forward and a backup. So he basically replaces himself, which is great value. Now, we saw the puck in Opus 11. There were a couple times that puck was like, ugh, I kind of hate having to wait to damage 3 to put this backup down. There were times that felt awkward, but when you did do it, the payoff was definitely there. So I'm not sure if this guy will be the universal, like, we're just going to replace the Sage for him. Maybe he will be, but he's definitely solid and worth trying out for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think he reads really well, and then you realize that damage effects on backups, we've talked about this before, are not as good as they seem, because you tend to get your backups down quite quickly. However, lightning does break backups, and this could be, you know, something that you recur and play later, or that you just play later because you've broken a backup, and you get super uber value later on, which could be neat.
Yeah.
Okay, now we've got the I haven't said this one out loud yet. The Propagator. Yeah, it's like an alligator, but it's a propagator. Yeah. Okay, so this guy is a 1 CP monster from Final Fantasy VIII. It's totally horrifying. I'm going to wake up tonight and this thing's going to be over my bed. So when it enters the field, you choose one forward, it loses 2,000 power until the end of the turn, and damage 3, it becomes a 7k power monster forward. Yeah, I guess. No, I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
I was going to put a spin on it. I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the effect's pretty poo-poo, but I'm glad to see this monster in here. To me, this is always one of the really neat parts of 8. You encounter these guys when you first land on the Ragnarok spaceship, and it's infested with these monsters, and you have to like color coordinate. You have to take out the same colors at the same time, otherwise they revive each other. So I always, and again, their design is just so alien and crazy looking. I've always loved the way these guys look. They always kind of freaked me out like you, so I like the artwork, and I'm glad this monster got a card, but I just wish it had a better effect. Yeah,
not a good card.
Okay, but what could be a good card is the Behemoth K. I almost said Behemoth King, because I'm assuming that's what it's supposed to be, but it's technically Behemoth K. So he is our Lightning Legend. He is a 5-cost, 9,000 power forward from Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. His job is the Sage of Hess. He reads, when Behemoth K is chosen by a forward's ability, break that forward. When Behemoth K attacks, Behemoth K gains 3,000 power until the end of the turn. Behemoth K deals your opponent 1 point of damage. At damage 5, Behemoth K gains haste, and when Behemoth K is blocked, Behemoth K deals your opponent 1 point of damage. So I won't lie, this card kind of scares me. This card worries me because I could see it reads insanely strong. And in particular, anytime you have a forward that deals you damage without, and it doesn't matter what forwards you have because the blocking is irrelevant, that always kind of worries me. You know, we saw it with Shikaries in the last Opus that, hey, it doesn't matter if you have a field full of people, just by declaring this party attack, boom, you take 3 damage. So that definitely worries me because if they're on damage 5 and this guy attacks, they instantly lose the game because they'll take damage on attack declaration, and then if they let it go through, they lose, and if they block it, they also lose. So that kind of like no-win scenario very much scares me. And when he attacks, he gets 3,000 power, so he's going to be a 12k. So it's very unlikely that even if they block him, that it's going to kill him in response. The only downside I can really see about him is that if you read his first ability, it says when he is chosen by a forward, not your opponent's forward. So that includes your own forward. So if you have a forward that buffs something, if you pick him, you're going to break your own forward. So just be mindful of that. I hope this card isn't the terror I'm kind of thinking it is, but when I read him, he scares me because he seems like he's going to be really annoying to deal with.
Yeah, I agree. He is quite slow, like in that, you know, he doesn't get haste until damage 5. So your opponent has time to deal with him, and he's completely susceptible to summons. Right? Yes. Like summons are gonna just wreck him. So even at damage 5, there's a way to deal with him pretty soundly. So I don't know. I think I do think he's really good, but I think like there's so many cards that at damage 5 they become monsters, or at damage 6 they become monsters. Like look at the old Asthenian, that, you know, you have to be so careful of where you're at with damage, and it's going to be the same thing with him. But I do think there's plenty of ways to deal with him. So it's not a card that you can complain about, that you can say like this is so unfair, like, because it's like no, you can totally play around him and be prepared for him, and he doesn't have any unfair protection or anything.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's a very powerful card, and I think that it's a fair card.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's not as crazy as I'm making it out to be.
Okay, cool. So next up we have Marach, but it's actually just Marach. So when Marach enters the field, your opponent selects one forward they control, deal 4k damage to all the other forwards. So he's a 4k forward, I should say. He's an 8k forward, Job Netherseer from FFT, and he is going to be part of a 2-card combo board clear with his sister that we'll reveal later. So without his sister, he looks like okay. 4 CP 8k forwards are tough, like if they don't do enough. However, dealing 4k damage is like a pretty sizable amount, so there's probably some sort of ping-based stack where this guy fits into, but he's not like a run on your alone card like you need to work around. And the fact that they can protect one forward is kind of interesting too. So
yeah, that's the kind of thing that makes me not like this guy so much. Any card that always gives your opponent like a choice or an option always kind of bugs me, because it's like, no, I want to choose what happens to them. The idea that they could say, I'm just going to take my best forward and say, yeah, he's immune to the damage or whatever. Maybe there's some combo out there that I'm not thinking of that would make that backfire on your opponent. But even though I like it's an interesting idea, and as we'll see with his sister, yes, he can get maybe a bigger board wipe going on. But again, the fact that they can, okay, well, I'm just going to choose my best guy and that one doesn't take any damage, that part kind of bothers me.
Yeah, and then I mean, like, they really need to have more than 2 forwards out, otherwise.
Yeah, because if they have a single forward, he doesn't do anything.
Like some decks, this might not do much. Like it'll be really hard to hold on to this guy. You'll be so tempted to just use him for CP. So
right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So next we have Lightning, the star of Opus 13. This is a 7-cost, 9,000 power forward, job savior, Final Fantasy 13. When Lightning enters the field, choose up to 2 forwards opponent controls or forwards in your break zone, remove them from the game. When Lightning leaves the field, return each card removed by Lightning's ability to its owner's hand. I don't know what to think of this card. On one hand, that sounds crazy strong, like remove 2 of their forwards from the game. Yeah, when Lightning dies, they'll get them back, but they'll get them back to their hand. So they're still going to have to replay them again, which maybe if they have good ETBs, they'll want to do that, but maybe if they don't, they won't. Or the fact that you can pull 2 forwards out of your break zone and then you're going to get them back when Lightning dies. Yeah, on one hand, that sounds crazy strong. And then on the other hand, I don't know, it's kind of weird because you ultimately will get your value back, or at least some of your value back, if Lightning dies. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure what to think of this card, I'll be honest.
I think like the choosing your own forwards is like insurance if they have 1 forward, or there's 1 forward you can't target.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if you use this to recur cards, first of all, what are you doing? Second of all, you're paying 7k to take 2 cards out of your break zone, and then when you get them back, I guess you're refunded 4 CP, but you probably pitch 2 cards to players, so you're just playing a 3 CP 9k, which isn't good enough. So unless the recursion is really important, and if the recursion is really important, then you probably need faster recursion than Lightning.
Yeah.
Because who knows when she's going to die? Your opponent might not do anything with her because they're like, yeah, you want those cards, I'm not going to give them to you. So I think it's nice that you could like, okay, your opponent has 2 cards. One of them is a Behemoth K or something, and you don't want to target it. So you target the other one, it's removed from the game, and then you're like, okay, I'll just grab like this card from my break zone, and then that way when she dies I'll get some value back. But otherwise you're investing a lot into her and you're just going to be down resources and have a 9k body, and that's not good enough. So it's got to be the removal. I think she's really cool removal for sure.
She's interesting. Something to note, I just learned today, if you read the official fact page, if she dies on the stack, so if her entry effect is on the stack and she dies, her second effect will go on the stack as well before her entry effect. So those cards will not actually return to their owner's hands. They'll just stay permanently removed. So yeah, that's interesting. So if you are dealing with her on the stack, just be mindful of that, is that if that isn't allowed to resolve first to where she removes them first, the second effect will go off and you'll never get those cards back. So just be mindful about that, both as the player using her and as the opponent.
We should call this effect like super bounce.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
super
like
bounce.
I'm going to super bounce your forwards.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have Rapha. So she is a 2CP backup, FFT backup. That's always good. Job Sky Seer, and then if you have her brother Marach, her brother Marach will deal damage to a forward and increase that damage by 1,000. I read that really poorly, but so basically she's gonna make his 4K ping become a 5K ping. So that's a little more appetizing. She's very easy to play. And then at damage 3, you can dull and put her into the break zone, choose up to 3 forwards your opponent controls, deal them 4K damage. So now you've got a 9K board clear possibly for your opponent. That's quite powerful. You could do maybe it's 4K to 2 forwards that Marach hit, and then she's dealing 4K to the forward that he couldn't hit, and then you're comboing with that or something. So I think there's some cool applications here. The fact that it's so easy to put her in the break zone once you have the damage is good. And I do like just having some more FFT backups with different names for future purposes. But overall, this seems like a pretty involved combo when there's other ways to clear boards.
It's a no-brainer if you're running her brother, and on its own in a vacuum, that damage 3 effect is crazy. All you have to do is tap her, put her in the break zone, and you get 3 forwards to zap them for 4K, and they don't even have to be active, which is normally like a staple of lightning abilities. So it's on its own. I don't know if you're really going to run her outside her brother. You could combo this with things like the Opus X Raiden, which just does 2K ping to all active forwards. So maybe there's some creative ways you could get board wipes in here not using her brother, but for the most part, I feel like you're going to make that combo.
Yeah, you know what though? I didn't consider using her without her brother. That's huge. That's way better. I think I think she's really good.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you can choose forwards that are dull too, and then because lightning also likes to have damaged forwards, but sometimes it's hard to damage forwards that are dull and then play the card that interacts with damaged forwards. So you know what? This card is pretty good. And if you want to get really saucy, you can play this with the Opus XI Orlando, and when he attacks, he deals 3K to their active forwards. So you can do a nice little 7K swing there with Orlando. Don't do that, but you could.
All right. Next, we have one of my favorite characters from Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. This is Lid. Lid is a 3-cost, 7,000 power forward job engineer. When Lid enters the field or is put from the field into the break zone, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Add 1 multi-element card among them to your hand and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. Then she has a special, which is Mechabo Custom Hammer, which is 1 copy of Lid and a lightning. Choose a forward, deal it 7,000 damage. If you control a multi-element forward, deal it 10,000 damage instead. Again, this is an example of these Brave Exvius cards being really tied to multi-element, which is, I just don't really know how to feel about that. In theory, if you reveal both on her entry and her exit successfully, she's overpaid for herself. You've gotten 2 cards back and she only costs 3 CP. I don't know. It's hard to think of a deck to put this in because of it's so tied to the multi-element thing. That being said, I do want to say this because this is one of our last Brave Exvius we'll be coming across. All the Brave Exvius ones got cards that had a mono artwork in Opus 8, and I thought they were all gorgeous. It was one of the things that made me check the game out. I thought all the Amano art was superior, with the exception of, as much as I like that Lid, this version of Lid I think looks awesome. She's so colorful. I love her little salute she's doing with the wink. She's so cute in this picture, whereas again, for the most part, I prefer the Amano art on all these Brave Exvius cards, but this one I'm like, dude, this card's art just pops. It just pops off the card.
I feel like this gives you so much more of her personality than the Amano card did. And I would say that about more of the units, except Jake's card doesn't tell you much about him as a character on the new art. So that really stood out for me too. This is in best case scenario, this is a super hyped up, mega powered Viking. Because it's also when it's put from the field to the break zone. So it doesn't have to, no, it's not just leave the field. Sorry, I got mixed up. Has to go to the break zone. But worst case scenario, this is a 3 CP 7K.
Yeah.
And are you really going to run 3 of these to use the special? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
If there is a deck where you can put that many multi-element cards into into your deck, then this is probably going to be good. But you have to run a lot of multi-element cards for this effect to go off. I guess you get 2 swings at it, but even then, yeah. Okay. All right, now we've got Dragoon. This is the one you were referring to in the Earth video. So this is a 5 CP standard unit, category 3. If you have and he has 8k power. If you have cast a job Dragoon or card named Dragoon this turn, the cost required to cast a Dragoon is reduced by 3, and he has haste. So he could be a 2 CP 8k haste, which is a really nice card, and it's almost certain that you're going to be casting Dragoons at some point in the match. So. Seems like a good addition. We're approaching the point. This was not the case for many sets. We're at the point now where it's like you can't put every single Dragoon into a deck anymore because you're gonna run out of deck slots. So while this is good, is it good enough to cut into Dragoons? What do you think, Travis?
Maybe. So like there was a 2 CP Dragoon people were running that I think you like paid 1 lightning to give it haste. Whereas this one just will naturally have haste, and he's basically going to be 2 CP2, because if you're running that Dragoon deck, the last thing you're going to have trouble doing is casting Dragoons. So unlike the Monk, I like this one a lot more just because of the word haste. Again, haste is a very threatening keyword. Anytime you can drop something that can immediately rush in is great. The only reason you might possibly want to still use that other one over him is because he's 2 CP, he's an RNA target, he can be brought back that way, whereas this guy is a 5 cost, so technically he's going to be in range of like Diabolos and all those things. But I mean, if they want to blow Diabolos on this guy as opposed to like Astinian or something else, I'm more than fine with that. So I'm excited for him. I'm definitely going to try him in Dragoons, and yeah, I think he's just another solid addition to it.
Yeah, big time. I think if you're paying 2 CP for him, they can do whatever they want to him, and you're going to be happy. Yep. And the thing is, if they don't do anything to you, he has haste. So it's great. That's awesome. All right.
Next, we have Lumina from Final Fantasy 13. Technically, I think she first appeared in 13.2, maybe 13.3. I think it was 13.2. Lumina is Job Mysterious Woman. She's a 3-cost backup. When Lumina enters the field, you may search for 1 category 13 forward and add it to your hand. Exact same as the Mog 13.2 searcher we got way back in Opus 1, but this one is in Lightning versus Ice. So for the 13 category, Lord knows so many of their cards are in Lightning. It's nice to have just basically another searcher that's not tied to Ice.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely huge for 13 to be able to mix up that color, not run Ice, or even if you run Ice and Lightning, you can use those Ice backup slots for other cards. So just gives you those options. It's really nice. Okay, now we're on to the starter cards, and we've got Urianger, who is a 2 CP, a Sign of the 7th Dawn, 5k forward with an EX burst from category 14, of course. So when he enters the field, reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, add 1 category 14 character among them to your hand, and return the others to the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is a nice little EX burst. He's a really cheap forward that works well with multiple cards that we could run with him. And I'm gonna just concede to you because you're the Scion guy. Because we have a bunch of Uriangers, right? We have a 2 CP one already that brings back monsters. We have a 3 CP multi-element one. Does this guy? Because this is hard. I mean, like obviously in a Scion's deck, actually, you're probably always hitting this, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, trust me, this isn't hard at all. This is the best card out of the Scion starter set that we got, in my opinion, because as much as I liked that other Urianger, he was only 2k power, so he was really weak. He would die if you sneezed on him, and he forced you to have to play monsters. You know, he was tied to monsters, so you had to have your dragon in the break zone or your Layak in the break zone or whatever, and then he had to come in and he had to resolve. This one, he's got a burst, so it adds more burst to a deck that already had probably 15 bursts or more, and he's going to reveal a category 14 character, backup, forward, monster, doesn't matter, so he almost always hits. And he's beefier, which really does make a difference, especially when like Oracle of Light is on the field. And now he's suddenly 7k, and he has haste because you're going to have Alice out. This card's incredible. I've used him a lot already. He's such an upgrade over the other one. Again, just because you don't have to tie yourself to monsters, which even the Urianger that came out last Opus, he was tied to monsters. So it's so nice to have one that's free of that. I absolutely love him. Can't praise him enough. There are times when I put down my Minfilia backup, if I already have Pop Limo in hand, I'm grabbing Urianger to dig deeper into the deck and have him swing in. Card is fantastic.
Well, that's a ringing endorsement. So thank you for that. And why don't you show off our final card here?
Yes, sir. So another Scion, we have Thancred, Job Scion of the 7th Dun, but he's also a Gunbreaker. He is a 4-cost, 8,000 power forward, category 14, of course. When a Job Scion of the 7th Dawn other than Thancred enters your field until the end of the turn, Thancred gains 2,000 power, haste, and brave. He then has a special called Blasting Zone, which is for 1 Thancred, you dull him, choose a forward, deal it damage equal to Thancred's power. Now this guy, he was the Scion I was the least excited for out of all the new ones, and I've played with him a lot since then, and I'll have to admit, I've actually come around on him. One, Thancred has never really had like a crazy good card. He was always kind of just there because he was a Scion. And it's funny because I remember the Opus, I think it was 7 Thancred, he had an effect too where if he was paid off of 14 backups, he would get haste. It's so weird they keep giving him like, well, he can get haste. Like, yeah, he's a Scion. He's going to have haste. So yeah. I don't know why they feel the need to keep putting that on there, but here's what makes this card good. One, it doesn't say Scion forward. It's any Scion. And there are many a times he'll be out off of 2 backups and I'll put down Alphino or Kryl or Minfilia, and he gets his buff off of that. Secondly, he has the best type of special that requires you to dull because he gets brave. So what you do is you get a Scion, he's got 10k brave, combat, attack with Thancred on the stack, dull him, use Blasting Zone, blow something up. I wasn't a big fan of him at first, but I can tell you from testing and playing him a lot, he plays a lot better than I first thought, and I highly approve of him now.
That's awesome. And then just to add on my meager opinion, flavor-wise, this guy is really cool. For those of you that don't play Final Fantasy XIV, Gunbreaker is a tank class. And so when a Job Scion enters the field, he becomes a tank. He gets 2,000 power, haste, and brave so that he can protect everybody else. I think that's a neat little flavor piece there. I like how they think about that when they're making the cards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. That is the Lightning cards for the set. And what do we think about Lightning?
I like this quite a bit, actually. So far, I think this might be my favorite element. The 2 Scions are really great, so I'm definitely biased for there. But like, I think the Dragoon's a little better than the Monk. I don't know how good the Lightning card will be, but she's interesting at least. Like, Lightning hasn't really ever had anything like that. It's got a good mannequin. The Kain is really interesting. Sakura and Zemus are both really solid backups. The Behemoth K could be really scary. So Lightning just, it felt like they're just doing some unique things. Even the Marach and the Rapha, like, even though I probably won't use them, they're kind of unique at least. Like, they do kind of give it something it didn't really have before. So overall, I'm very pleased with Lightning.
I was about to say that even like the pack fodder, if you want to call it that, is better than the pack fodder of other elements like the Rapha and the Marach thing. They're just better than some of the other cards. And same thing with like Sakura and Zemus. They've got way more utility. And regarding that 7 CP Lightning, I mean, it can't ever be that bad just because it's such a big piece of removal. It's not sending cards to the... It's removing 2 cards potentially, and it's not putting them into the break zone. It's a super bounce, right? So I think that's. I think it's got, no matter what, there's going to be space for it in some deck out there. Like, it can't be that bad. So
because of you, whenever I try her out, I'm gonna throw her down and be like, super bounce, go!
Please do. Everybody out there, hashtag it, and you have to give credit to me when you do it though. So that's the only thing. Okay, awesome. We're gonna take off, but we're gonna be back soon with the water review, and then finally we've got the light dark multi-element review that we'll film at some point as well. So thank you so much for joining me, Travis. Everybody, you can go check out his channel. I'm gonna put the description, or put it in the description below, and I'm gonna make sure it's correct this time. I copy paste my descriptions, and when you copy and paste the description, for some reason it gets rid of the link or doesn't complete the link. So that's why it hasn't been updated. So I'll make sure it's updated this time. But yeah, thank you, Travis.
You bet. See you in water.
All right, bye guys.